The outer planets are the big players. They are major arcana cards in the tarot deck. They come in and they teach us all collective lessons. So while the personal planets, Mars, Venus, Sun, Moon, teach us the intricacies of who we are, the outer planets teach us the big lessons and help us to see the bigger meaning of what we're doing here. This year, 2025, we have all of these outer planets changing signs. And they're ingressing into new signs, which means that when they go retrograde, they've got to go back into the old signs before they then go forward again. So we're not done yet with the signature energy of the signs that the planets have been in. So let's break that down. We are in a period where we have to go back. We have to go back into what was. We got a taste of what will be this summer because they all moved into their new signs. Saturn, Neptune moved out of Pisces into Aries. Uranus moved out of Taurus into Gemini. Pluto moved out of Capricorn into Aquarius, although Pluto is the one that is going to stay now in Aquarius, which is good because we're getting to explore that energy without having to go back and clean up the old energy. And we need that because what's happening, and we're seeing this, and I encourage you to see this in your own life too, is that themes that were not quite resolved or things that we thought we were done with are now back. There's a lot of old stuff that we're having to look at again and deal with again, whether that is something that is obvious and on the news, or it's something that is very deep and historical about your own journey in this lifetime as a human. We are being faced with some old stuff, and it's not very fun. We'll put it that way. So we're going to go into that today. I think that it's an important moment in time to explore some of this so that you are on the right foot. We will be exploring this even more in my workshop that's called Season by Season Turning Inward. It's going to be on September 21st. It is free. You can register in the link below in the box, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on the podcast. And depending on where you are, like, subscribe, set automatic downloads. That way you can continue to find my version of astrology, which is spiritual and psychological. I'm Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. And if you like my work, you can find more of me at electroastrology.com. So we're going to talk about going back into the old world. Now, the high degrees of any sign are potent. They are the degrees of mastery. So when we have a planet that goes back into a sign, for example, Saturn right now, I'm going to share my screen too, because I want to talk about this. This will just give you a visual. So I want to show you right now, Saturn is at 29 degrees of Pisces. So Saturn has slipped back. Neptune will not be back into Pisces for a bit. And Uranus has now turned retrograde and won't be back into Taurus for a bit, but we know that it's coming. Of course, we have Pluto over here. Pluto is retrograde, but it's not going to go back into Capricorn, which is great. However, when a planet retrogrades back into a different sign, it retrogrades through the high degrees. These are the degrees of mastery, which means that when we're going back to tie up loose ends, it's like we're dealing with the hardest parts. So an example of that, you're moving and you have gotten the furniture dealt with, you've packed all the stuff into boxes. And what is always one of the hardest things to deal with when you're moving? It's like the minutia, the junk drawers, right? You open up and you're like, oh my God, I've kept all of these little rubber bands and letters and all of this stuff. I've kept it for a reason, right? Like I felt like I was going to need that again. And I didn't know what to do with it before. And I still don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. And so we have to deal with the junk drawers. And that's one example of how all of this feels. We're having to deal with all of the stuff that we either didn't deal with last time, we didn't know how to deal, or we're coming back and we're having to deal with much more precision. So another example might be that you're a student and you pass the test and you get out and you're so excited to be done. And then you have to go take the boards. Even though you've graduated from the school, now you have to go back and prove what you know. And it's a whole other level of stress. Or another example is you've split up from a partner. You have said the goodbyes, you've had the final conversations, but you still need to go back over to their house to get the rest of your stuff. right? So I'm painting a picture here for you of like, eh, this is not easy. We want to be moving on. We want to be in the energy of what's next, and we have to keep going back. For the next 6 months, by the way, we have to keep going back into what was with more knowledge, with an excitement about what's over here, knowing that we're stuck with what's back here for a while. So, this in and of itself is a tricky energy. And if you are watching the news, there's been a lot of difficult stuff that has happened over the last few days that's been very public. And my intention with these particular teachings, I don't want to jolt your nervous system. So I'm not going to get into it. But here's what I want to say is that a lot of this feels like we're going backwards, right? We're thinking, can we just get moving? Can we get into the improvements? Can we get to a place where we're all getting along better, where we're solving problems? And we want that. And now we're back. Now we're back in a place where people are polarized. People are acting terribly. People lack compassion. They're lacking empathy. There's confusion. It's energy that's very reminiscent of the past 5 years. So why are we back here? Okay, well, let's talk about it. We're in the middle of eclipse season, and these eclipses are all about the spiritual awakening process. So we have this North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. With Virgo, it's all about control, and it's having a position, a mental position, a spiritual position, a physical position. This is where I stand. This is what I think is right. This is what I disagree with. This is where I'm trying to help. This is where I'm trying to get approval. This is what makes me anxious. We can all relate. We all have those things within us. And we look at those things as the human things. And what happens when there are tragedies, big, visible, national tragedies? What happens? We all go into Virgo, where we want to fix the problem. We're frustrated. We have a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And we feel like if only somebody was doing something differently, then we would have a better outcome. And remember, Virgo is one of the signs that we use to get in there and control things. Now, one thing that I've noticed is that it's very easy to get sucked into the emotional hysteria of things that have gone wrong. And if we look at Saturn here, Saturn being our planet of limitations and boundaries, being now in Pisces. And Pisces on a dark day is ruled by fear. And Saturn doesn't have many boundaries in Pisces. And so our planet that is the CEO that is holding things together has slipped back into this sign where it's completely subjective. And we have to face, first of all, our fears, all of the fears. What if this happens again? What if nobody solves this problem? Why isn't somebody doing something? When we're in a state of reaction, we go into a few different things. Generally, we go into anxiety or we go into anger, both of which we use in a very Virgo way to control an outcome. If I worry enough about it, if I put enough of my energy trying to figure out an answer, then I can solve the problem. If I'm angry enough about it and I can put my energy toward vindication or retaliation, then I can come up with a solution that soothes my nervous system. Okay, well, we know on a spiritual level that both of those are off of the mark, and that the true work of Pisces is to connect in with the self. It's to find the connection to a higher power. Now, I want to say I'm not religious at all. So anytime that I talk about God or higher power, it's not coming from a place of religion. It's just coming from my own personal experience with touching in with the dynamic field of awareness and understanding that source is something that we have access to all the time. And it is in the stillness, it is in the connecting in with our higher self that we are able to connect in with source. Now, source is not about being angry. It's not about controlling. It's not about anxiety. It's about holding the center, being present with exactly what is here right now. So while it makes perfect sense to slip into fear, worry, anger, all at attempts to control an outcome. That speaks to us staying down in the South Node. South Node is our comfort zone. It's what we're familiar with. It's not the point of growth. Everything that is coming to us right now is pushing us to grow, and we're growing spiritually. So I want to share a story. We always hear that we create our own reality and that we can manifest what we want, that if we set the right intention, we can bring what we want to us, etc. That we can manipulate people, we can manipulate energy as long as our intentions are in the correct place. So a few years ago, being the seeker that I am and wanting to explore all of the things, get insight into how people tick, why people choose different modalities, I decided to take a class on witchcraft. It was a great class. I really enjoyed the teachers. They were very intentional in how they taught the class, and they taught us many things. Ultimately, I decided that witchcraft was not for me, and I'll explain why. But I want to share this story with you because it does speak to the idea of creating our own reality and how easy that is to do and how important it is to create with intention. And a lot of times when we are reacting to something that is emotionally disturbing, we end up accidentally creating versions of our reality that don't actually suit what we're trying to do. So if you find yourself going into fear, anger, outrage, retaliation, is that really helping to solve the problem at hand? If you feel yourself going into worry and hand wringing and fear about the future of the world, is that helping to bring you what you want to see? Is that helping to solve the problem? No. So here's my story. I was taking this class and I had a friend who was really struggling emotionally. And me being the caretaker that I am naturally, I wanted to take care of this friend. I wanted to help them. This person was planning to sell everything that they owned, but not in a very stable way, though. It was a very impulsive, I'm going to sell everything that I own and I'm going to go leave the country and I'm going to go backpack around. And it was all coming from a place of rashness and, as I learned later, mental illness. And I knew that in my heart. But every time that I was trying to talk to my friend and convince them to stay, the answer kept being no. And as I was taking this witchcraft class, they were teaching us about sigils and how you could draw symbols on things to get them to stay safe, to get them to come back to you. So, for example, you might want to draw a sigil on a beautiful necklace so that that necklace would always stay in your possession. And so I thought, in an attempt to keep this person safe and ensure that they would come home, I thought that I would put some sigils on their backpack. Okay, so I did that. And sure enough, a few months later, this person came back. And when they came back, they were even more mentally unstable than they were before. They needed more from me than they had needed before. And I found myself in a really sticky situation because, as we all know, and we have friends who we love, we want to take care of them, we want to support them, but also they're making bad decisions, they're dealing with addiction, they're having all these other problems that there's a fine line between how much we're willing to help and then when do we get sucked in and it just becomes a drain on us. Okay, so I'm at this point with this person and I'm like, oh my God, like, do I still want to remain friends with this person? Like, is this even worth it? Is there anything that I can do? And ultimately, they came over and they ended up leaving and they left their backpack. And we really haven't had contact, but I still had the backpack. So I'm getting ready to move. I'm creating a big goodwill pile and I leave the backpack there. Well, a few days later, I find the backpack in the basement again. And I said, what? I thought I was getting rid of this backpack. And my kids said, oh no, we liked that backpack. We were going to use that. We thought we could use that. And I thought, oh my God, the backpack came back. The backpack had the sigils. The backpack came back. Okay, all right, it's a coincidence. So then a few months later, one of the kids takes the backpack and goes camping with it, doesn't come back. I don't think anything of it. A few months after that, one of the moms of the kids that my daughter had gone backpacking with brings the backpack back and says, by the way, I think that you left this at my house. And I thought, my God, it's the backpack again. So it's been this running joke that this backpack is never going to leave. This backpack is going to be with me forever because I was making an attempt to impart my will onto another. Now, I've thought a lot about this and how when we get into that Virgo mode, and I was in Virgo mode, I thought, well, I want this person to stay safe. And I want to know that I've done everything that I can to support this person. And I've enjoyed this person's friendship. And I want to control their experience. I want to make sure that if they leave, they come back and they're going to be safe and sound. And what ended up happening is that they did come back and it was a mess. Like I said, I realized very quickly that I didn't actually want this person in my life anymore. And I started thinking about the magic, the spells that we cast, the things that we do unintentionally as an attempt to control. So if you are somebody that is watching the news and feeling angry and full of vitriol and wanting revenge, is that the spell that you want to cast? Probably not. On the other hand, if you are watching the news, and I hear so many people say this now, it's like, I hate this country. This country is so bad. I don't feel safe here. I want to move to a different country. And it's like, okay, so you're experiencing fear. Is that the spell that you want to cast? Right? We have to be incredibly intentional right now about what energy we're wanting to surround ourselves with, because when we're casting spells, we are able to create exactly what we want, but there's always a price. There's always something that kind of boomerangs back. So when we look at the North Node in Pisces and we say, oh, okay, that's right, I'm evolving. This is a spiritual evolution. And then we look at Saturn moving back into Pisces. And in a few months, we have Neptune moving back into Pisces. And we say, oh, that's right. These are spiritual journeys. These are spiritual lessons. What would my higher self, what would God have me do? If I was going to leave true nature in charge, what would that look like? And I don't know what that looks like for you because I'm not trying to control your opinion. I'm not trying to control the way that you live your life, but I am trying to suggest that if you were to leave your responses, your movements, your desires up to your higher power, what would that look like? For me, it looks like holding my center. It looks like stopping and pausing and tuning into the energy of myself, listening to my heart, tuning into my gut, allowing my intuition to bring me the information that I need. Because when I have an attachment to a certain outcome and I'm trying to make my world look like what I think that outcome should be, that's Virgo. That's me being my human. And how can my human know better what we need and what should happen? How does that version of me know better than the God version of me, than the higher power? Now, tuning into this God's will, and I always feel weird saying that because there's a lot of fundamental religion that has become popular and mainstream. This is different from that. And of course, if you have a dogmatic religious belief system, great. As long as it's helping you to stay out of fear and out of outrage and anger, and helping you to find your center, helping you to connect in with that which is greater than you. What I'm looking at these things as is this trust, this deep breath, this pause that is required every time that we are faced with something that is really difficult. It's like imagine fighting with your sibling, and all you want to do is reach out and smack your sibling as hard as you can, right? And I think we've all had those moments, and you don't do it. You pause and you face that inner turmoil that's like, I am so angry right now. I want to lash out. Or think about when you're having a wave of anxiety at 2 a.m. and you just can't hardly stand it because every direction that your brain points you toward is something else to be scared of. Imagine that the spiritual lesson here is to take a deep breath and find your center, find yourself in amongst all of that anxiety, really trying to pause the anxiety long enough to come to the present moment where you are laying in your bed and you are actually safe, even though your mind and your nervous system is telling you otherwise. This is being the witness that is always with you, that is watching, that is reminding you that this is just something that's happening right now and that you will get through it. You may not know the answers and you may be facing some really strong, tough emotions, but there's nothing to be done. The only thing to be done is to take a moment and connect in with this higher aspect of yourself or with God, because that is the only place that you're going to find the stillness and the peace, and the only place that you're going to get the information that you need about how to move forward. Because we don't want to give our energy to the fear, the pain, the suffering, the outrage. That is there and available for us all the time. But the more that we give energy to that, it's like we're feeding that monster. We don't want to feed that. We want to feed the center. We want to be the voice of reason. We want to be the one that is balancing the energy, not shaking it up. So just take a deep breath into that. And I want you to think about somebody in your life. And it might not be a person, it might be an animal, or it might be a place that you go to retreat at the base of a tree or sitting by a river. That grounded energy, the person or place or beast that when you are around them, you end up co-regulating into peacefulness with them. How when you're around those people, the world seems a little bit better and things feel a little bit easier. And hopefully you can be that person for yourself or for others. But if you can't, it's always good to have somebody that is grounded, that is not going to freak out or have a temper tantrum or lose it. Those are the people that are unstable. You can't trust them. And that means that your energy body around them is vibrating. And we all have people like that where we're walking on eggshells. We never quite know what we're going to get. And we don't want to be putting that energy out into the world in a time when it is very chaotic. We have to go back and learn old lessons. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to find their center. Nobody wants to trust. Nobody wants to confront those very deep, potent, traumatic energies that live within them. And the defense against that is to go out and be angry or be scared. So we're not ignoring that we have the anger and the fear within us, but we are working very intentionally to not act those out, right? We're not stepping into the room. It's like if you're trying to quit smoking, you're not going to keep a drawer full of cigarettes in your house. You're going to very intentionally keep yourself away from cigarettes. Okay. So that's what we're working on. We're working on creating an environment for ourselves where we can be more centered, where we can be more grounded, where we can access that higher level information. The higher level information is not going to come in through the television. It's not going to come in through incendiary social media posts. It's going to come in from the people that make you feel calm and grounded. Pay attention to your nervous system when you're around people. Pay attention to your nervous system when you're scrolling social media. I'm at a point now where I can tell instantly whether somebody is a match for me or not by how I feel in the first few minutes of them talking. And truth be told, that's why I don't get political and I don't share my opinions and I don't even really mention names when I'm doing these teachings, because I want your nervous system to feel grounded. I want you to make connections that come from a place of peace, not of fear. But we need to talk about these things and how addictive the fear and the worry can be. And the truth is that we live in the human world and there is a lot to be fearful of and there's a lot to be worried about. So we're not being Pollyanna and putting our head in the sand and saying this doesn't exist, but we are saying cultivate the center, hold the balance, take the deep breaths, pause before reacting, be the grounded center of your reality in as much as you can. And that is really moving in the direction of the North Node Pisces, which is about the spiritual awakening, right? We have to be able to face the things that are very disturbing, but not with retaliation, and not with more fear, but with a grounded, okay, what needs to be done now? And these are not big grand plans. What needs to be done? We're going to fix this. It's like, how can I bring the energy that I wish to see in the world out into the world? Well, very small, tiny steps in your own life, in your own experience, being the one that's holding the energy and being the one that's holding the space. And when we talk about being a vibrational match to the energy that we wish to see, when you are watching things that are stressing you out and then you feel your nervous system stressing out, you've just become a match to that. So you want to be so present that the minute that you see something on the news, oh, click it off. Nope. The minute that you start to engage in a conversation with somebody where you're about to go head to head and argue, or you're about to go straight into hand wringing together, oh, I'm so worried. Oh my gosh, me too. Let's talk about it. Catch yourself, because it's not that you have to cut yourself off, but you can say, I need to take a deep breath. I need to find my center. I need to be in a very specific vibration before I allow this conversation to continue. And let's practice here for a minute, because this is worth practicing. So, one of my favorite exercises, if you've been here a while, you've done this with me, where you take a deep breath into the center of your body. And you notice how your body feels. You come into the present moment, begin to hear the different layers of sound, begin to notice the temperature of the air on your skin. I'm noticing thunder. I'm noticing the sound of a generator. I'm hearing silence. And I'm hearing birds. Okay, so we're giving our attention to what's right here and right now. Now we're keeping 50% of our attention right there with our breath, with our bodies, with the air around us, while we are giving the other 50% of our attention to whatever we're looking at or talking to. So there is a way to hold your center, and you think about that person that you know who you want to lean in when they're talking, or you want to be around them because they're relaxing. My guess is that they have the gift of holding their center. So your nervous system calibrates to their nervous system, and then you are both in a place of peace. Okay, so this is nervous system calibration. As we go back into the old world, back to pick up our stuff from our ex, back to take the bar exam after we've already passed the class, stress, right? It's going to bring us stress because we are having to prove what we've already learned. We have to prove how to have good communication, how to be in amongst people that disagree with us, how to hold our center. And the only way that we're going to do that with peace instead of stress, because we have just gotten a taste of how stressful it all is. Hopefully, we don't have more. If we do, though, it's all about maintaining your relationship with your heart, your gut, your intuition, which is another way of saying invite your body in to partner with you. Invite God in to partner with you. Understand that your brain does not have to have all the answers, and in fact, usually has wrong answers. That this is about the spiritual evolution of you as a soul on this planet who came in wanting to spiritually evolve. If you're listening to this teaching, you wanted to remember. You wanted to remember that you are more than just a human, that you are a spiritual soul that has come in to help change the planet in this incarnation. All right, so take a deep breath into that. You're here for a reason. And any of this work that you do of remembering to come back to the center, remembering to connect in with your higher power, remembering to stay as far away from worry, fear, vitriol, retaliation as possible, you're helping other people to do the same. You're practicing something that can be very difficult, but the practice will pay off in the ripple effect out into more and more people. The more of us that are able to hold our center, the more peaceful this planet becomes. I believe that. All right. I hope this was helpful. I will see you all soon.